Good day, everyone. I'm Christine Noguerra, and today, join me as I will discuss the literary piece titled I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. But before we proceed to our discussion, we're going to explore the major themes of Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings through a fun and creative emoji story activity first. So, think about the themes of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, like freedom, resilience, or finding your voice. Use emojis to create a short story or message that represents these ideas. For example, the emoji flying dove and the emoji next and a sunset emoji. And this represents freedom. And the other examples like growing through learning and finding your voice. Comment your emoji story in the chat box and briefly explain what your emoji story means. So don't overthink it, just have fun with it. All emoji stories are valid as long as they connect to the book's themes. To encourage everyone to participate, I'm offering plus 3 points bonus on your quiz assessment for posting an emoji story and explaining its meaning. Now let's start with the discussion. So for today, we will analyze Maya Angelou's groundbreaking autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, published in 1969. This work is the first in a 7-volume series and narrates Angelou's childhood and teenage years. It explores themes of racism, identity, resilience, and self-discovery. Through Angelou's poetic prose, we'll see how her personal experience reflect larger societal issues in 20th century America. Our goal for today is to understand how Angelou uses her life story to comment on the universal struggles for freedom and self-acceptance, and to analyze the literary elements like symbolism and structure that make this memoir timeless. For introduction, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is an important work of autobiography, blending personal recollections with profound social commentary. Published in 1969, it is the first of Angelou's 7-volume autobiographical series and recounts her early life, from her childhood, the segregated South, to her teenage years in California. This literary work belongs to the genre of autobiography, as it details Angelou's life story while exploring universal themes of identity, resilience, and overcoming trauma. The narrative captures Angelou's struggles with racism, sexual abuse, and displacement, but also highlights her journey toward self-discovery and empowerment. Through vivid imagery, symbolic motifs like the caged bird, Angelou creates a compelling and intimate portrait of her formative years. The memoir not only chronicles her personal growth but also serves as a testament to the broader experiences of African American in 20th century America, making it a timeless and inspiring work. For the author's background, Maya Angelou, born in 1928 and died in 2014, was an African American writer, poet, and civil rights activist. Born as Margaret Ann Johnson in St. Louis, Missouri, she experienced a turbulent childhood marked by racism, sexual abuse, and displacement. Angelou's personal life significantly shaped her works as she addresses themes of identity, resilience, and social justice. She was also involved in the civil rights movement, working with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, 1969, is the first in a 7-volume autobiographical series detailing her early life and coming-of-age journey. So, Angelou's life experience shaped the themes of her works, especially her struggles with identity and oppression. I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings is a reflection of how she overcame personal trauma and systemic racism. Now, let's tackle each element of the plot. Exposition. Maya and Bailey are sent to live with their grandmother in Stamps, Arkansas. After their parents' divorce, Maya experiences racism and begins to grapple with her identity. So the exposition introduces Maya and her brother Bailey, who are sent to live with their paternal grandmother Annie Henderson in Stamps, Arkansas, after their parents' divorce. These events sets the tone for the rest of the book, highlighting Maya's early sense of displacement and insecurity. Their mother, Vivian, is absent for much of their childhood, and this absence makes Maya feel neglected and abandoned. Upon arriving in Stamps, Maya is immediately confronted with the harsh realities of racial segregation. She becomes acutely aware of the rigid racial divisions between black and white communities, which shapes her understanding of social injustice. Her grandmother, strong and dignified, represents a source of stability and love in her life, while the rest of the black community provides Maya with an understanding of resilience in the face of systemic oppression. The South, however, is a place where racism, prejudice, and inequality are deeply entrenched. And Maya begins to internalize her own sense of inferiority, largely due to her physical appearance and race. Rising action. Maya's sense of self is shattered after being sexually assaulted by Mr. Freeman. This event leads to her self-imposed silence. So the rising action focuses on Maya's traumatic experiences and her emotional and psychological response to them. One of the most significant events during this period is the sexual abuse Maya suffers at the hands of Mr. Freeman, her mother's boyfriend. After the abuse, Maya feels deep shame, guilt, and fear, which causes her to withdraw into silence. She becomes mute for nearly 5 years, unable to speak to anyone. As the trauma renders her incapable of expressing herself, this silence is symbolic of Maya's sense of powerlessness and isolation. It reflects how trauma can impede one's ability to communicate and connect with others. Her withdrawal also illustrates how deeply her self-worth has been affected, as she is unable to process the assault or understand how to navigate the world after such a devastating experience. Maya's silence is not just a result of the assault itself, but also a defense mechanism, a way for her to cope with the emotional scars that come with the trauma. For the climax, Mrs. Flowers reintroduces Maya to literature and language, helping her regain her voice and confidence. So the climax occurs when Maya is introduced to the world of literature by Mrs. Bertha Flowers, a dignified black woman in Stamps. Mrs. Flowers recognizes Maya's intelligence and takes it upon herself to help Maya regain her voice. Through Mrs. Flowers' encouragement, Maya begins to read poetry aloud and slowly reawakens her love for language. This moment is pivotal because it signifies Maya's emotional and intellectual awakening. The act of reading and reciting poetry becomes a form of empowerment for Maya, enabling her to reclaim her voice and express her inner thoughts and feelings. Through literature, she begins to see herself as more than just a victim of circumstance. She starts to understand the power of words and their ability to heal and empower. This moment is crucial in Maya's development because it marks the beginning of her journey towards self-acceptance and emotional recovery. And for the following action, Maya moves to California with her mother, confronts new challenges, and discovers her independence. So the following action in the novel takes place when Maya and Bailey are sent to live with their mother in California. This move exposes Maya to new challenges as she navigates adolescence and learns to deal with the complexities of being a young black woman in a different, more urban environment. In California, Maya faces the challenges of growing up in a more diverse city, where she encounters a new opportunities and struggles. Her relationship with her mother and other figures in her life evolve, and she begins to confront the difficulty of adolescence, such as navigating romantic relationships, establishing her own identity, and dealing with societal expectations. However, the experience of living in a more integrated society also shows Maya that racism is not confined to the South. Racial prejudice exists everywhere in different forms. This realization forces Maya to further explore her identity and her place in the world. For the resolution, Maya becomes a single mother at 16, finding strength and hope in the face of adversity. Her decision to raise her child reflects her growth. So the resolution of Maya's story occurs when she becomes a single mother at the age of 16. This is a significant moment in her life as it represents both a challenge and a triumph. Despite being young and facing the pressures of motherhood, Maya shows great strength and resilience. She embraces her role as a mother and begins to take responsibility for her own life and her future. This stage of her life represents Maya's ability to overcome the hardships and emotional scars of her earlier years. She proves to herself that she is capable of managing her own life and taking care of someone else, which is an empowering moment for her. By the end of the novel, Maya has matured and developed a stronger sense of self-worth. She has come to understand that despite the challenges she faces, she is in control of her own destiny. Maya's resilience and her ability to find strength in motherhood reflect her growth and the power of self-determination, concluding her journey toward independence and self-empowerment. Now let's talk about the characters. The first character, Maya Angelou or Margaret Johnson, the protagonist and narrator. She grows from a traumatized, insecure girl into a resilient, self-aware young woman. Her character development is central to the narrative as she learns self-worth and independence. So Maya starts as a shy, insecure girl who suffers from the emotional scars of being abandoned by her parents and facing racial discrimination. Her early life is defined by a lack of self-worth. As the protagonist, Maya's journey is central to the narrative. She learns to reclaim her voice and sense of self-worth through the relationship she forms, the trauma she endures, and her eventual empowerment through language and education. Through Maya's evolution, we see her grapple with silence after trauma and ultimately speak out, especially through the encouragement of Mrs. Flowers. Maya's growth from vulnerability to strength is central to the book. The second character is Bailey Johnson Jr., Maya's brother and confidant, whose charm and intelligence provide Maya with comfort. He represents the protective bond of a family. So Bailey is protective and intelligent and sensitive, often acting as Maya's emotional anchor. His charm and wit are a source of comfort for Maya in the turbulent times. Bailey provides Maya with companionship and support, particularly when they are isolated from their parents. He represents the ideal of familial loyalty and support. Bailey is Maya's closest confidant. His love for her offers a sense of security that helps Maya endure her trials through his own emotional struggles, highlight the limitations of family support. The second character is Annie Henderson. So, Maya's grandmother, whose strict religious beliefs and resilience reflect the strength needed to endure racism and hardship. So, Mama is strong and unyielding. She upholds a strict sense of morality and has an unshakable faith that she uses to navigate the harsh world the harsh world around her. Her faith and strength serves as guide for Maya, showing her how to face adversity with dignity and pride. Even in the face of racism and personal loss, Mama teaches Maya about resilience. Despite the oppressive environment of stamps, Mama embodies dignity and grace, showing Maya the importance of inner strength. Next is Vivian Baxter, Maya's mother, whose independence and charisma influence Maya's understanding of womanhood. So Vivian is independent, charismatic, and unconventional. She has a more modern, free-spirited approach to life compared to Mama's more traditional and rigid worldview. Vivian helps Maya develop a sense of independence and the more nuanced understanding of womanhood. While Vivian is not as stable as Mama, her energy and style of living influence Maya's growing understanding of her own identity, especially as Maya struggles with reconciling the two maternal figures in her life. Next is Bailey Johnson Sr., Maya and Bailey's father, a charming but unreliable figure. Charismatic but unreliable, Bailey Sr. is a source of emotional neglect. He fails to provide the stable father figure Maya needs. Although Bailey Sr. is charming, his abandonment of the family and failure to fulfill his paternal role leaves lasting scars on Maya's psyche. His actions contribute to Maya's feelings of abandonment and confusion, making her more vulnerable to the trauma she faces later in life. Next is Mrs. Bertha Flowers, a refined, educated woman in stamps who becomes a mentor to Maya. Mrs. Flowers introduces Maya to literature and the power of language, helping her regain her voice after her trauma. Refined, intellectual, and kind, Mrs. Flowers embodies grace and wisdom. She is deeply empathetic toward Maya and recognizes her potential. Mrs. Flowers plays an important role in Maya's healing process by introducing her to the power of literature, language, and self-expression. Mrs. Flowers encourages Maya to regain her voice after her trauma, helping her understand the therapeutic power of words. She also serves as a role model of intellectual empowerment. Mr. Freeman, Baxter's boyfriend and Maya's abuser. His action leave Maya traumatized, leading to her silence for several years. So Mr. Freeman is charming but predatory. His role in Maya's life is one of destruction, as he sexually abuses her, leading to her silence. Mr. Freeman's abuse is the catalyst for Maya's initial silence, marking a traumatic moment in her development. His actions lead to Maya's self-imposed silence and deeply affect her emotional well-being, causing her to retreat from the world around her. Next is Daddy Clidell. He is Vivian's second husband who becomes a positive father figure to Maya. So, Daddy Clidell is loving, steady, and the positive father figure in Maya's life after Vivian's remarriage. His consistent care and support help Maya feel loved and valued, especially in contrast to the neglect she felt from her biological father. Daddy Clidell's presence provides Maya with a foundation of love and stability that she lacked during her earlier years. Uncle Willie, Mama's son, and Maya's disabled uncle. Though strict, he represents the struggles and dignity of black men in the South. Uncle Willie is Maya's disabled uncle, the son of her grandmother and the central figure in her family. Despite his physical limitations, he is portrayed as a resilient and dignified man who represents the struggles and pride of black men in the South. Uncle Willie is strict with Maya and Bailey, instilling in them the values of hard work and self-reliance. His character shows the inner strength required to navigate a world of systemic racial oppression while maintaining a sense of dignity. Next is Dolores Tuckland, Bailey Sr.'s girlfriend who clashes with Maya. Dolores Tuckland is Bailey Sr.'s girlfriend and the source of tension in Maya's life. She is portrayed as mean-spirited and harsh, often clashing with Maya, which disrupts the family dynamic. Maya feels uncomfortable and alienated by Dolores, who does not offer the kindness or warmth that Maya longs for. Dolores represents the complexities of family relationships, especially when new figures enter the picture, creating friction. Now let's go to the themes. So there are three main themes that I observe in the story. First is racism and oppression. The work illustrates the pervasive racism in 20th century America, showing how systemic injustice impacts the life of black individuals and communities. So in stamps, Maya and Bailey face systemic racism, experiencing prejudice both overtly through segregation and insults and subtly through the limitations placed on their aspirations. Angelou highlights the persistent and deeply ingrained racial divisions of the South, illustrating how these social structures shape the lives of black children like Maya. Next theme is the identity and self-acceptance. The memoir explores Maya's struggle to find her voice and place in a world that devalues her identity. So Maya struggles with her identity, questioning her worth due to societal racism and their trauma. Though her relationship with characters like Mrs. Flowers and Vivian, Maya gradually learns to accept herself and understand her own value, marking her emotional maturation. Next is resilience and overcoming trauma. Maya endures sexual abuse, abandonment, and racial prejudice but learns to navigate her trauma and grow stronger. Maya's trauma from Freeman's abuse leads her to a period of silence. However, with time, encouragement, and the support of figures like Mrs. Flowers, Maya finds her voice again. Angelou emphasizes that true healing involves confronting and expressing pain. Maya's journey of resilience speaks to the universal struggle for emotional and psychological recovery. Now let's proceed to the style. So Angelou employs a rich, poetic prose style that intertwines vivid imagery and lyrical descriptions with straightforward narration. Her use of symbolism and metaphor elevates her experience into universal truths. The conversational tone creates intimacy with the reader, while moments of humor lighten the heavy subject matter. This blend mirrors the duality of Maya's life, beauty amidst pain. So Angelo's styles blend rich lyrical language with straightforward storytelling. Her use of vivid imagery and metaphors enhances the emotional impact of her experiences. This stylistic choice allows Angelou to convey complex emotion and societal realities in a way that is both personal and universally resonant. It creates intimacy with the reader and elevates the narrative from mere autobiography to a poetic meditation on the human experience. Next is structure. The memoir is structured chronologically but incorporates flashbacks and reflections. This nonlinear style mirrors the complexity of memory and trauma. The book begins with Maya's childhood and ends with her teenage years, symbolizing her emotional and intellectual growth. Each chapter is episodic, focusing on important moments that contribute to Maya's journey. So the memoir follows a non-linear structure incorporating flashbacks that represent the fragmented nature of memory and nature. This mirrors how trauma often affects the perception of time, and it also allows Angelou to reflect on how the past informs her present. Next is form and content. The form of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is a personal memoir which perfectly complements its content. By blending autobiography with literary artistry, Angelo personalizes systemic issues like racism and sexism while offering universal insights into resilience and identity. The first person narrative blends authenticity to her experiences. So Angelou blends autobiography with literary artistry, making her personal experience accessible while addressing broader themes of race, gender, and resilience. Next is imagery and language. Angelou uses powerful imagery and literary devices to convey meaning. Here are some of the imagery and literary devices evident in the story. First is cage bird metaphor. titular image of the caged bird symbolizes confinement and the struggle for freedom, paralleling Maya's own experiences with oppression. Next is vivid descriptions. Angelou paints scenes with sensory details such as the oppressive heat of the south or the soothing cadence of Mrs. Flower's voice. Next is figurative language. Similes and metaphors enhances the emotional depth of the story, such as comparing her silence after trauma to a tomb. So the story takes place in several locations, primarily in Slumps, Arkansas, a deeply segregated southern town where Maya experiences the harsh realities of racism. In St. Louis, Missouri, a more urban setting where Maya endures abuse and trauma. And in California, a place of transformation where Maya begins to find herself. Now let's talk about the motifs. The first motif is bird imagery. The cage bird motif underscores themes of confinement and freedom. It represents Maya's struggle for freedom, echoing the title's central metaphor of the cage bird. Silence and voice. Maya's periods of silence symbolizes her struggle with trauma, while her rediscovery of language represents healing. Maya's silence is a key motif that reflects her trauma, but her eventual rediscovery of language symbolizes her healing and empowerment. Education and literature. Books serves as a refuge and source of empowerment for Maya. Book serves as a lifeline for Maya, offering both solace and empowerment. This motif highlights the transformative power of knowledge and self-expression. And now for the historical and political context. Set in the 1930s and 1940s, the memoir reflects the racial and gender inequalities of the Jim Crow era. Angelou critiques the systemic racism of the South while also addressing issues like the sexual exploitation of black women. The narrative predates the civil rights movement but provides context for the struggles that fueled it. So the memoir critiques the systemic racism of the Jim Crow South, where black people faced disenfranchisement, segregation, and violence. Angelou includes these elements to show the pervasive nature of racial oppression and how it shaped the experiences of black children like Maya. And now for the conclusion. So in conclusion, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is a powerful story about overcoming adversity and finding strength through difficult experiences. Maya's journey from a traumatized girl to a self-assured young woman is inspiring. Throughout the memoir, she faces racism, trauma, and personal loss. But she learns to embrace her identity and find her voice. The people in her life, such as her grandmother, her brother Bailey, and Mrs. Flowers, play key roles in helping her heal and grow, showing her how love and support can help us overcome even the greatest challenges. The themes of resilience and identity are central to Maya's story. Through her struggles with silence and oppression, she learns that true freedom comes from within and that education and self-acceptance are powerful tools for growth. The imagery of the caged bird symbolizes Maya's own feelings of being trapped, but it also represents her hope for freedom and her eventual triumph. The memoir beautifully demonstrates how even in the face of hardship, we can find strength and move toward a better future. And what I've personally learned from reading and analyzing this story is the power of perseverance. Maya's experience reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for redemption and challenge. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is not only an account of overcoming personal suffering, but also an enduring statement about the importance of finding one's voice no matter the obstacles. And to wrap up this lesson, we'll have a short 10-item quiz. Don't forget, if you participated in the emoji activity, you've already earned plus 3 points. And the Google form link for the quiz is already uploaded in the Google Classroom. So thank you all for your participation today. I hope you found this exploration of Maya Angelou's work insightful and empowering.